to join me. Who am I? I'm new to those listening and watching this Thursday morning. Maybe in the 80s, you knew who I was. Maybe in the 90s, but it's 2020. Well, I'm Loren Legarda, former senator since 1998. Perhaps not many of those who are biking, cycling advocates, and some of our guests tonight or this morning were not yet born, but I'm one with you in our advocacy. And so, since 3 weeks ago, we started this Zoom meeting, which is on Facebook Live and also on YouTube. So we are a growing group. This is called Stories for a Better Normal. What do I mean? Mga kwentong buhay po last week sa pagtatanim ng gulay, maski sa mga maliliit na lugar at mga walang garden o farm. Nung isang unang linggo po, yun po ang paghihiwalay ng basura, paggagawa ng compost, itong pagbabike, kaya ginawa natin buong episode, at kung paano tayo magresponde o pagmagbago ng ating buhay sa panahon ng pandemic, sa panahon ng COVID, sa panahon ng coronavirus, at hindi, maski 1 year kung may vaccine na, magbabago na tayo sa dati. Why do we want to go back to what we were before? Marami nagsasabi, labas na tayo ng bahay. Wala nang ECQ. Mawawala na ang GCQ. Balik na sa dati. Hindi po. Kaya tinawag namin ang programa, hindi lang new norm, the better normal. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Gusto ba na ho natin bumalik sa dating normal? Ano ba ang dating normal? Hanggang ngayon, maruruming ilog, nagtatapo ng plastik at ng dumi sa ating karagatan. Maruming hangin, bumubuga ang mga public at private transport ng maruming hangin na pumapasok sa baga. Walang makain at napaka-cramp ang ating mga syudad. At ang ating mga commuters, yung mga walang kotse, nagpipila ng ilang oras bago pumasok sa kanilang mga opisina at tanggapan. Marami pang iba. Yun pa ang gusto nating balikan? Ako hindi. At sigurado ako, lahat ng kasama natin ngayong umaga to, ayaw bumalik sa dating normal. Ni isang nilalang nakilala ko, walang gustong bumalik sa dating normal. Dahil po, yung dating normal ay hindi normal. Winasak natin ang ating kalusugan, kalikasan, kapaligiran at kabuhayan. Kaya sa ating programang Stories for a Better Normal, ito yung ating pang-araw-araw na leksyon, buhay, alituntunin na ginagawa hindi lamang ng isang Loren Legarda na dating senador at ngayong congresswoman ng Antique. Hindi lamang yung mga eksperto at scientists at yung mga nasa taas ng liderato. But these are people on the ground who will share with us not just their advocacy, it's not all talk, pero yung kanilang ginagawa. I'm so happy that we are partnering first with the Mother Earth Foundation, my partner in ecological solid waste management, the segregation of waste at source, recycling, and composting. Partner din natin dito ang Climate Change Commission na siyang nagtuturo sa bawat ahensya ng gobyerno and local government kung paano maging climate friendly, kung paano magiging akma ang ating kabuhayan sa bagyo, sa tag-init, sa may infectious disease, sa may dengue, sa mayroong COVID-19 at marami pang iba. Partner din natin yung Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities. Importante na ang institute na ito, yung pagtuturo sa mga syudad, sa buong Metro Manila, sa Cebu City, sa iba't ibang mga syudad, at hindi lang kailangan declared city in every local government, maging climate adaptive at maging sustainable. These are buzzwords, these are terms na maaring hindi maintindihan ng lahat. Kaya sa araw na ito, we will try to speak in the simplest terms possible and have pictures, and Red Constantino of the Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities will be co-hosting, and Attorney Ipat Luna, who is by Taal Lake. Nakakaingit ka, Ipat. Ini-imagine ko na lang tong aking lake wala naman akong lake dito. So, kapartner din po natin ang isang grupo na ang tagal ko ng kapartner dahil ang kanilang founder at pinuno ay ang aking matalik na kaibigan na si Al Gore. So, the Stories for a Better Normal is being supported and partnering also with Climate Reality Philippines. And we have hundreds of climate leaders trained by Al Gore himself in the Philippines who are joining us, who will propagate everything that we're talking about, from urban agriculture to our urban mobility, to our bicycle pathways, to our clean air, clean water, ecological solid waste, protection of biodiversity, and meeting the challenge of COVID-19 and emerging from it alive, safe, healthy, resilient, and better. Now, I read, how are you today? I see all your books. Nabasa mo na ba yan? Okay, but today you will teach us more about cycling. Alam niyo po, ang kasama natin ngayon, eksperto lahat sa pagbibisikleta. Hindi ko alam kung kamukha ko sila na tumutumba. Ako, hindi po ako nagpapanggap na ako'y eksperto at professional na cyclist. Ako po'y advocate at tumutulak ng mga magagandang polisiya para mabigyan ng daan ang ating mga cyclists. At it's never too late na matuto magbisikleta from work to home or even for leisure or in any place. I will repeat, ang eksperto ang siyang kasama natin. Ang Loren Legarda tumutumba, pero bawat tumba, bumabangon. I remember, ang tagal na, how many years ago? Red, maniwala nagbisikleta ako sa Vietnam, sa Hoi An. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I felt this feeling of freedom, of liberation. I wish I could do that in Metro Manila or even in my Antique. Kaya tutulungan tayo ng Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities na gawin yun. At ang galing ng ating mga partners at guests ngayon. Red, would you like to say hello, Red? Would you like to introduce all of them, or would you want me to say it? Okay, introduce all our friends joining us today. Red Constantino of Climate Reality and the Institute of Climate.
Hi, ma'am. Good morning po.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's everyone's honor to be on your show, and I found it a little funny that you think you have to introduce yourself. Hindi po kayo nakakalimutan. Napakarami po. And this is because, not because you've appeared on TV so many times, but it's because the things that you're bringing up and you're putting on the show were things that you were advocating for before the pandemic. So these are not new things to you, and we're glad that you've lent your considerable voice to the aspect of mobility. It's actually kayo po mismo nagsasabi, hindi ito about cycling. It's about mobility, and it's about the working people being able to go around our economy in a reliable, predictable way. Tama po sabi nyo, on our panel today are experts, and I'm happy to say that I would be echoing what you're also saying, because our colleagues in government are experts also, but also we have urban planners here, like Keisha Mayuga, who will be presenting shortly after me, and then Aldrin Pelicano of Manila Moves. And we also have our guest, sayang may sakit si Naz today, but we also have a climate reality leader, Rommel Corro. Matutuwa po kayo kasi member siya ng Triabetics, which is diabetics that compete in triathlons. Medyo mabigat po yung mga ganong klaseng tao, no? And of course, we have Sir Bong Nebriha, Mr. Exec Frisco San Juan, of kilala naman po ang kanyang angkan, at our colleague Mr. Saruca, who works very closely with Danny Lim in taking on probably one of the most serious challenges now as we try to move to the ECQ. These are people with long histories in inclusive urban mobility, they are all delighted that someone who has drawn the line so many times for a long time in both chambers, but also in your private life, have lent your support to such a great cause. No?
Thank you.
Ang
Thank
kailangan
you
po
so much.
natin is cost
Yes,
effective, and
very
that's
good.
always what you've been putting forth.
Thank you so much, Red, for giving a clear introduction into what they're going to expect. Gusto natin marinig na kung ano ang kanilang mga karanasan, yung life cycles. Napaka-interesante. Ito'y isang grupo na dedicated para talagang dalin ang cycling, ang mga bisikleta sa ating frontliners. We'd like to hear more about the more than 8,000 followers ng ating Life Cycles Philippines. Kasi yung mga frontliners sa sanitation, sa mga ospital, pati mga security forces, ay mga miyembro ng ating mga Life Cycles Philippines. What is this Life Cycles? Tell us more about it.
Ma'am, if you don't mind, I'll try to frame a little bit the discussion, and we can slide straight into Keisha's presentation.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I'd like to hear Keisha, and if you have art cards to show now, I'd like to see that more, because I'd like to see so that they know what to expect. Ano ba tong life cycles? Paano ako makakasama? Environmental planner siya, urban planner siya, paano akma ang cycling sa ating urban planning? Tapos ano ba yung Manila Moves? Paano ako makakasama sa Manila Moves? Ito ba isang online collective community na maaari din sumama kila Aldrin? Tapos ang MMDA, talaga na bang gagawin nyo? Bakit nung senador pa si Loren, sinabi na nyo may bike lanes? Nag-antay pa ako ng COVID bago nyo gawin. Totoo na ba ngayon o testing lang? Ayan ha. Matatapos ng ECQ. Tapos traffic na naman daw sa EDSA. So, you better walk your talk, MMDA. It's about time. Okay. Tapos si Rommel Corro, nagsabi daw sa kanya, huwag ka magbisikleta, baka delikado yan. Pero nagbisikleta siya, di ba? From Muntinlupa to Makati. So all of those, we will hear from them. I will stop talking and I will listen.
Sige po. First, if we can have the first slide, and then we can go straight. Sige ma'am, salamat po. Okay. So my name is Red Constantino, as Deputy Speaker Loren Legarda has introduced. I'm also a cyclist. I cycle to work as much as I can, and our work is really all about fair climate policy and low carbon development. Most importantly, our work on the climate crisis follows the same mode by which we approach this current issue. So, the first question, probably one of the more important questions to ask, is you may have a lot of advocacies, but what is it that you can do that can help government? What is it that is meaningful to the work that government is doing right now? Because at the moment, kailangan tulong-tulong, and government should not be confronting this issue on its own, when we citizens can also contribute to the entire effort. Next slide po. If you've been paying attention to the news lately, you would realize a number of problems are going to crop up even as we're trying to ease the lockdown restrictions. Very basic po. Before the ECQ, almost a great majority of our households, they cannot afford cars. No, even before the ECQ, many times you hear people nagtatanong, hindi naman lahat ay marunong magbisikleta. Pero meron din kasabihan na hindi rin lahat ay marunong magmaneho. In fact, a very tiny minority of households actually can afford private cars or private vehicles. We also know that traffic congestion is pretty serious. No? 71% ang last count of the congestion levels in Metro Manila last year, and we spend an estimated 257 hours in traffic. In a well-functioning economy, traffic should be the concern only of private motorists, yung mga may kaya. Pero kung nahirapan din tayo sa ating public transport options, it becomes even harder. You'll see the statistics are very clear, no? Only 3% upwards of our EDSA lanes are taken up by buses. A great majority are by cars, 65.6%. A little lower yung mga motorsiklo. Yung mass public transport is not as enjoyed in terms of our roads, especially in EDSA. Our colleagues in DOTR, working closely with our IATF and MMDA, have also projected a number of figures. Of course, there's a big debate right now because the position is to continue or to sustain the ban of buses and jeepneys. But even if we assume that earlier projections, 50% reduction of passenger capacity for jeepneys, public utility vehicles, and buses, kahit na i-lift yung restriction na yun, um, in order to enforce the safety standards of government, which is correct, no? Because they're looking after the safety of our citizens, they expect a reduction of 88% in passenger capacity for LRT1, 90% for LRT2, 87% ang reduction of passenger capacity sa MRT3, and PNR is 80%. Parang ang laki-laki, and sometimes at first glance it feels unreasonable. Sobrang laki naman na i-reduce. But you have to think of the entire range. Pag inisip natin ng isang wagon ng MRT, at in-assume natin yung Sardinas standing room status, and from there you go to one empty seat in between passengers, medyo thinkable na po yung 88%. In this situation, we expect that commuters and pedestrians who represent the great majority of the urban population, hindi lang doble ang kanilang waiting times, mas tatagal palalo. Now is when I think government really needs to consider aggressively setting up pop-up bike lanes, yung madaling ilipat as we try to learn more which routes are going to be the most effective, para it feeds our own public mass transport systems, hindi lang sa rail, kundi pati sa bus and jeepneys and public utility vehicles. We actually are of the position that we shouldn't ban the buses. In fact, ang dapat i-reduce ay yung private motorists because the public commuters represent the great majority. And again, kung saan kami makakatulong, lalo na that message goes to Exec San Juan of MMDA, with the inspired leadership of Danny Lim, we will try to do what we can. No? By cycling, taking up cycling as an option, we do a lot of great good for the country. Next slide po. In terms of climate impacts, yung co-benefits niya are obvious. And when we suggest cycling to work as a mainstream essential service and option, it's not because of climate, it's because it's good for the economy. It's good in terms of less fuel and less fuel used, less imports, better air quality, better health of workers. Co-benefit niya, may contribution din tayo, by the way, to the climate. And you will see from the figures above that there have been a lot of projections showing that the amount of emissions that we can reduce is really substantial if we actually take up options that are good for the economy to begin with. The savings for cities in particular, up to 25 trillion, which is an underestimate because it hasn't factored in so many other costs that we will avoid as well. It all makes sense. Of course, mahirap yan kasi hindi pwedeng sabihin lang sa pamahalaan, and it's a little irresponsible to just say, master plan ka agad-agad. Hindi ganun kadali. So what we're trying to suggest, and what Keisha and Aldrin and Rommel will also be suggesting later, is there are concrete ways that we can do this, learn, pilot, maliit, incremental, until we find the optimal solution where we hope cycling becomes a mainstream option. Last slide po is just a snapshot. Aldrin will of Manila Moves will show you later the study that we did with Aldrin and the University of Twente, showing how practical bike lanes can be. From the surveys, ang pinaka-priority of those surveyed, and they're pretty a big figure, no, of people, cyclists and non-cyclists were interviewed. Everyone wants interconnected bike lanes as a priority. Safety, of course, but interconnection will be really critical. But I leave that to Aldrin to explain more later. And I ask Keisha, if you can turn to the next slide. Keisha, if you can introduce yourself briefly and tell us more about what Life Cycles has done. Congressman Legarda is really waiting to hear more about your work. Keisha, over to you.
Ay,
Sige po.
Keisha, ang ganda ng picture niya. Teka, Keisha, ang ganda-ganda naman yan. Saan ba yan? Where is that?
That's just in Quezon City.
Wag mo sabihing just. It is proudly in Quezon City. Ayan.
It's
Environmental planner ka at saka ikaw ay avid cyclist. Gusto malaman namin what are the real stories, inside stories, your stories for a better normal of frontliners na nakumbinsi mo or kasama sa 8,000 followers mo na nagbibisikleta to work, especially during COVID. Ayan. Okay, we hear from you, Keisha Mayuga.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again, Congresswoman, for having me here. Again, I'm Keisha. I'm an environmental planner and avid cyclist. So I started a group called Life Cycles just when we heard na wala nang mass transport. Actually, yung in-announce yun, naiyak ako as a transport planner myself. It broke my heart to learn na people won't be getting home the next day unless they have a private car. So that's why we started Life Cycles PH. Next slide, please. So we started in March 17, and from then on, we kept going for more than 2 months. We've already gotten more than 1,400 bikes to frontliners, and we do this in 2 ways. So yung unang way is meron kaming donation drive where we've gotten over 3 million in the past 2 months, and we've donated almost 1,000. Actually, kukompleto ko yan tomorrow because I will deliver more bikes. So we have donated these bikes to frontliners, especially to hospitals. So we've given to 47 institutions. So these are not just hospitals. We also gave to the LGUs of Pasig and San Juan, and also supermarkets kasi essential din po ang workers natin doon. They also still need to get to work. And then the second way wherein we can help or our initiative has helped is through the community. So yung community naman is a Facebook group where people with bikes can lend to the frontliners who need to go to work. Kasi marami naman sa may bisikleta, hindi naman nila ginagamit through ECQ. So through the community matching, we got more than 400 frontliners borrowing bicycles from these individuals. And it's so heartwarming kasi yung ibang stories, mga 20 minutes pa lang sila nag-post, meron na silang nahanap na bisikleta agad na malapit sa kanila. It's really amazing. And
I'll interrupt. Borrowing. Hindi kayo nag-donate. Nag-donate kayo, pero borrowing then is part of your program, nagpapahiram.
Yes. So, meron kaming donation that's from Life Cycles itself. And then yung borrowing, we set up a community where people can post doon kung nagpapahiram sila ng bisikleta at kung nasan sila. And yung mga manghihiram din, they can post there na, I'm borrowing and I'm in this area. Meron bang tao dito in this area? So, from that initiative...
Sinusoli yun, sinusoli.
Yes, actually, may mga iba na nagsasoli na, and then may mga iba na pinapahiram pa rin kasi sobrang hirap ngayon na walang public transport. Kahit ngayon sa MECQ and up to GCQ. So may mga ibang nababalik and may mga iba na bumibili na after sila makahiram. So na-realize nila na malaking magandang investment talaga ang bike. Hindi lang siya pang sports, hindi lang siya for recreation, pero it's something to get them to work and home.
Okay, continue. Ayan, yung EDSA evolution mo.
Yes, so after naman bigyan natin ng mga bisikleta yung yung frontliners, kailangan naman gawing safe para sa kanila. So kaya na-start din tong initiative called the EDSA Evolution. Why EDSA? Kasi main thoroughfare siya. Pag ginugol natin yung EDSA, di ba, it's so ridden with traffic, but we want to change that mindset into something that's bike friendly. That's why we started with the trial test of EDSA Evolution from from White Plains Avenue to Bonnie Serrano Avenue. So yung movement na to actually inspired other LGUs to put up their own pop-up bike lanes. So in the next few days, makikita natin, and we're coordinating with them, hopefully in time for World Bicycle Day on June 3. So since wala tayong mass ride, since we have to observe social distancing, the way to celebrate is maybe to put up pop-up bike lanes around the city. So,
i-clarify mo lang, although naintindihan ko, pop-up bike lanes. Ayan, yung mga biglaan, yung mga innovated for the day, ganun ibig mo sabihin.
Yes, yung pop-up bike lane is actually employed sa other cities then. It's meant to see na to answer for a temporary time lang. But hopefully with these pop-ups, maging mas permanent siya to see na marami naman talaga nagbibisikleta, so why don't we make it a little bit more permanent? But while we're waiting for more permanent structures, we still have to keep our frontliners safe. Kasi kahit kung mas maganda na nga na may cones ngayon kesa na wala at the moment.
Okay,
so mas safe.
Continue.
Yeah, so hopefully by next week, on World Bicycle Day on June 3, more cities will follow suit with these pop-ups. Kasi alam ko yung planning process, I'm an urban planner myself, it will take a while. But while that is it's not yet happening or ipaplano pa siya, it's good to put up these pop-ups. Kasi nandyan na yung mga frontliners natin, na nagbibisikleta na sila ngayon sa streets. And ayaw natin na maghintay na may madisgrasya na naman na frontliner dahil natamaan sila ng kotse at gusto lang naman nilang gawin is makarating sa bahay. So,
okay. So
yeah.
We go to next slide. Yeah. Do we have a next slide?
I think
thank you.
That's it.
Yung inyong organization, nakatulong na kayo sa mga nagtatrabaho sa supermarket, sa mga ospital, and you've had donations that you give to them, free bicycles, right? And then naghihiraman din from the Facebook. Oo. Ano yung mga challenges o dangers o risks na sa tingin mo dapat i-address, nakikinig kayo ng MMDA o ako as lawmaker under my new norm bill, renamed as a better normal bill, while I will already present it today, I hope that I will address the concerns of the bikers or the cyclists or sustainable urban mobility. I know that Red already put in his comments on my bill. Ipatingin din natin kay Aldrin, kay Keisha, kay Rommel, at sa MMDA. Then there's still the period of committee amendments and individual amendments, and I hope that the whole cycling community will have complete set provisions to address your concerns. So just one, Keisha, give us a little heartwarming story or itong sa panahon ng 2 months ng ECQ, ano ang mga nadiskubre mo sa mga Pilipino, lalo na sa pag-innovate sa paggamit ng mga bisikleta?
Naalala ko talaga yung isa sa mga una naming nabigyan in the medical city, si April Katindig. Dati siyang nagje-jeepney at umaabot siya mga 2 oras galing Antipolo papuntang Pasig. Pero nung nawalan ng mass transport, trinay na maglakad. Pero nung nakapag-donate kami, yung lakad niya na 3-4 na oras, naging less than an hour na ride na lang. So, dahil...
And that's from Antipolo to Quezon City. Wala pang bike lane doon.
Walang bike. May bike lane, but a very short bike lane and still very dangerous kasi hindi siya protected. Pero yun, kausap ko nga din siya nung isang araw, sabi niya sana may protected bike lane. Kasi maraming frontliners din, yung shift nila sobrang aga or sobrang late sa gabi at nakakatakot nga naman na may dumadaan na kotse. Tapos pag hindi ka nakita ng kotse, kasalanan pa ng siklista, no? Pero kaya makakatulong talaga ang mga pop-up or yung mga protected bike lanes. Kasi hindi lang naman si April yung nagbibisikleta, pero libo-libo na. 1,000 pa lang yung nabigay namin. But
Okay.
I'm sure there are more.
So it's very clear, hindi lang Metro Manila ang kailangan natin. Also the Mega Manila, outside of Metro Manila, because Antipolo is not part of Metro Manila, pero doon siya nakatira at papasok siya ng Metro Manila. So what we need to do, Red, and ICSC San Juan will join us later, is Metro Manila with the outlying LGUs, namely Rizal, at nandyan ang Bulacan, at nandyan ang Laguna, Cavite, possibly even Batangas, diba? Pag may bike lane talagang, uy! Teka, ano ba yung background mo? Anong halaman niya? Napakaganda.
Virtual siya, pero reality in soon all over the city.
Sabi ko, ano kayang tinanim ni Keisha? Napakaganda ng tanim. Okay, very good. So, we go next. Red, would you like to lead on to our next panel or speaker or expert or advocate? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Our next speaker will be Aldrin Pelicano of Manila Moves. And like Keisha, these are citizens that we can proudly boast about, and we do that to a huge constituency that ICSC often speaks to, because their work is always practical. They put working people at the center of their advocacy, and they subscribe to the dictum that you framed your letter to MMDA with, which is move people, not cars. And he's worked with a lot of institutions. He has a job as well. Ang day job niya is not advocacy per se, but this is the advocacy that took over his life as well. Parang kay Keisha rin, and an urban planner.
We hear now.
Thank you, Red. If we could go to the slides, please. Okay, magandang umaga po, Congresswoman Legarda, at sa inyo pong mga manonood. Maraming salamat po sa pagkakataong ito na naibigay niyo po sa amin para po makapagbahagi ng aming karanasan at kaalaman po tungkol po sa pagbibisikleta bilang transportasyon dito po sa ating mga lungsod. Ako po si Aldrin Pelicano mula po sa Pasig. Tinatag ko po ang Manila Moves. Nagsimula po siya bilang isang Facebook page back in 2015. And it's a personal passion project po. If could go to the next slide, please. Which has grown to basically a community of transport cyclists o bike commuters. Nagsimula po siya noong 2015 nung ako po ay lumipat mula sa Ortigas sa trabaho, puntang Ayala. At the start, nagsimula po ako magbisikleta dahil napakatagal po ng biyahe ko mula po sa bahay namin papuntang Ortigas Center. I take like an hour mula po sa bahay. Kaya po, at lagi po akong sabit sa jeep, naranasan akong sumabit, or even siksikan sa bus sa araw-araw po. Kaya po naisip ko, isang araw po, napilitan po ako maglakad. Wala pa pong pandemic, pero naglalakad na po ang mga tao papunta sa kanilang mga trabaho, gaya ko. Kaya naisip ko, kung ako po yung maglalakad, dapat makahanap ako ng paraan na mas mabilis akong makapunta sa aking trabaho. At yun po ang pagbisikleta. Hindi po ako marunong magbisikleta noon. Katulong po ang isang grupo ng mga siklista rin, mga folding bike po na enthusiast. Doon po ako nagsimula at natutong magbisikleta. At bilang urban planner po, I started sharing my thoughts and experiences sa aking araw-araw na pagbabiyahe. Next slide, please. Isa rin po akong ama at ang aking pong dalawang anak, si Andres at si Emilia, ang primerong dahilan bakit po ako nagbibisikleta ngayon. Dahil nauubos po ang oras ko, papasok ng trabaho at pauwi sa bahay. And when I started bike commuting, I saved 2 hours of my day. So that's 10 hours a week. Nakapiling ko po yung mga anak ko at ang aking may bahay, aking pamilya. At napakahalaga po nun para sa akin. At yun po yung naging mensahe ko sa pag-post ko sa Facebook. At hanggang ngayon na kami po ay lumaki na bilang isang komunidad. Next slide, please. At in that process po, we started reaching out to different stakeholders, different partners, hindi lamang sa cycling community, pati din po sa labas, sa working with local governments and other organizations. Nagsimula po kami sa pagbabahagi ng kaalaman tungkol sa mga different bike commuting gears na sa tingin namin magagamit ng mga tao, at nakapag-partner po kami with, for example, like the Medical City and their CPR Center, giving training on CPR sa mga siklista. And then more recently po, next slide, we were able to work with the Dutch Embassy in Manila. Kausap po namin ang Embassy of the Netherlands in Manila. We designed and implemented this Think Bike Workshop, kung saan po dinala po nila kanilang ilang eksperto po dito sa bansa. Nagpunta po kami sa Iloilo. Iloilo po yung naunang pinuntahan po ng mga eksperto, at doon po nila ibinahagi ang kanilang kaalaman. Ngunit sila din po ay natuto sa atin po. For example, in particular, like sa Iloilo City, they have already a good program on bike lane network and cycling culture. So hindi po ang naging exchange po ng knowledge. Next slide po.
Singit lang ako.
Yes, Congresswoman.
Dahil napakaganda ng aming kalikasan sa Antique at katabi kami ng Iloilo, pagkatapos nito, imbitahin ko kayo, pwede na magbiyahe after ECQ. Gawin yung modelo ang Antique kasi hindi pa polluted, hindi pa masyadong matao, at sumusunod ang mga tao, at kami kasi ay makakultura, makakalikasan. At ang amin, mula Iloilo hanggang Aklan, dadaan ka ng Antique. Yang highway na yan ay coastal lahat. Di ang ganda-ganda. Mula sa Iloilo, dadaan ka ng South Antique, nandyan ang Hamtik, Aniniin, napakaganda, hanggang sa dulo sa North Antique, yan yung protected area, kung saan ang tanda ng hometown ko. It's a beautiful scenery. Iniimbita ko kayo magbisikleta. Mula Iloilo, dadaan ng South Antique, Central Antique, North Antique, hanggang sa Aklan. Tapos mag-e-end ka sa Katiklan, kung saan yung papuntang Boracay. Ayan, nasingit tuloy ang Antique kasi ang daming nanonood. If I may just mention, our viewers from Antique, Duro, salamat. Ang ating taga Bulacan, binanggit ko kasi yun, hindi lang Metro Manila ito, kailangan yung mga Karatig Bayan, Region 3 at saka 4A, kailangan kasama. Ang viewers from Samar, maganda rin sa Samar gumawa, La Union, Pasig, Davao Oriental, Marikina, Mandaluyong, Canada is watching, okay, and Cavite. Naku, may time check ako dito, madaldal daw, o balik kay Aldrin, sige. Aldrin, teka, magkano bang isang pinakamurang doable ng bisikleta?
Alam niyo po, Congresswoman, ngayon po marami pong nabibili na like mga nasa 5,000 po kasi. Alam po natin na medyo malaki pa yan na halaga. Ngunit ang amin pong ibinabahagi po sa aming mga followers at mga kaibigan, you really need to invest in a good bike, in a complete bike po na merong bell, merong fenders, or yung tapalodo, yung takip po sa gulong. Dahil sa atin po kasing klima, mainit sa umaga, uulan sa hapon, dapat po handa ka kung ikaw ay magbabike commute para sa ulan or sa tubig. So yun po yung, you can start at 2,000, 3,000, it could go as high as like 30,000. A folding bike is a really good bike na po. At marami pong klaseng bisikleta. Kaya nga po nabanggit po ninyo yung inyong invitation po. Salamat po sa pagpunta sa Antique. Isa pong grupo po within the cycling community are what they call bike packers or bike tourers. Marami po sila na pumapasyal po sa mga island po natin, kagaya po ng Panay. And talagang malaking tulong po yan sa turismo, hindi lang po sa transportasyon. And so talagang sana po masuportahan niyo po ang komunidad in terms of policy. And speaking of policy po,
policy but also action.
Yes, opo. Yan nga po. Kaya po yung next slide po natin, please.
Okay, next slide.
Katuwang po namin ang Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities nila, RED. Nag-conduct po kami ng survey back in December, and we asked more than 400 cyclists na po, bike commuters themselves na po. The previous slide po. And the result of this survey po, we call it Better by Bicycle, Metro Manila Bike Lane Network, only confirmed what we already are seeing every day po sa aming bisikleta. Now, in absence of policy and infrastructure for bike commuters, marami na po nagbibisikleta. Ang punto lang po, Congresswoman, hindi po binibilang ang ating mga commuters on foot and on bicycle. So and this map would show po sa inyo yung color yellowish or yellow green are what the bicycle commuters, the respondents, answered as the roads that they use. These are the roads that they heavily use every day on their bike commute. And these are primarily the major thoroughfares in Metro Manila po. C5, EDSA, our radial roads. Kaya po yung color green naman po, yan po ang aming suggestion, ang aming rekomendasyon po sa inyo na i-consider po ng pamahalaan na buuin na po ang ating radial and circumferential roads to form a complete network po ng bike lane. Kasi po hindi po uubra ang disconnected, putol-putol po na bike lane. Protected man yan or conventional, meaning pintura lang sa pavement. Kung yan po ay putol-putol naman, hindi po yan magiging kapakipakinabang po or malaking tulong sa ating mga siklista. Ang mga Dutch po ay mayroong 5 prinsipyo po sa pagbuo ng isang bike lane network. Una po, coherence. Dapat po, a good infrastructure should provide good connectivity between all origins and destinations po. Kung ang siklista po ay nakatira sa Bulacan, sana po siya ay merong bike lane network na pagpasok ng Valenzuela, Caloocan, tatagos po siya ng EDSA, papuntang Quezon City, hanggang sa kanyang trabaho sa Makati or even Alabang. Sa amin pong Facebook page, sinishare po namin ang amin pong nakakausap sa araw-araw po, mga Shimanong ang tawag. Shimanong, ito po ay Shimanong po, Congresswoman. It's a play of words. Shimano is a brand of bicycle components, and Manong is a local term sa atin, mga breadwinners, mga tatay, tsuhin, sila po yung araw-araw po walang helmet, lumang bisikleta, pero sila po ay pumapadyak araw-araw mula po sa kanilang bahay hanggang sa trabaho. May mga nakausap po ako, Congresswoman, like si Tatay Jose, na isa pong pintor, kahit saan po ang kanyang project site, Alabang man yan, Manila, pero siya po ay taga-Pasig. Binibisikleta po niyan, araw po o umuulan. Kaya po, pangalawa pong prinsipyo, Congresswoman, is directness. Hinihiling po namin sa ating pamahalaan na kung sila po ay magtatayo ng protected bike lane, sana po the most direct. Gaya po na nakita ninyo sa slide na ito, based on our survey results, our bicycle commuters need the most direct bike lane po in our metropolitan area. So halimbawa, in C5 or in EDSA, kung posible na po yan, we can start with temporary bike lanes, gaya po ng nasimulan ni Keisha. And then, by using temporary bike lanes, pop-up bike lanes, we can test, we can build, and we can learn from these temporary infrastructures that MMDA, that the DPWH, and the DOTR can eventually make permanent po, post-ECQ. So yun po yung aming hinihiling at ipinapaalam po sa inyo. Gaya po, for example, ng mga businesses, gaya po ng Mega World, sa kanilang mga estates in Arcovia City along C5. Within their development po, meron na po silang dedicated conventional bike lane. Pininturahan na po nila ang kanilang mga street with bike lane with clear markings on the pavement. At in-adjust po nila yung kalsada. Hindi po kumakain sa existing motor vehicle lane yung bike lane po. Kaya po wala pong magre-resultang conflict or confusion between the bicyclist and the motor vehicle user po. Isa po yung isang best practice na gusto po namin i-comment po kay Mega World at sa iba ring mga businesses like po ng Ayala na sa kanilang mga malls, matagal na po silang nagpasimula na meron po silang secure bike racks sa kanilang mga malls. And we really appreciate po yung ganoong initiative. At yun po ay actually related sa pangatlong prinsipyo on safety. At yung pang-apat at pang-lima po ay comfort and attractiveness, na which could come later po if and when we are able to build a functional and connected bike lane network.
Oh, are you there?
Yes po.
Yes.
Salamat po.
Okay. Can you give us all your slides so we can post it on Facebook permanently? Because the presentation of Keisha and your presentation and Red's as well is very well researched, and I'm sure those who are joining us now, but those who can join us later and study all of that. And important that it's no longer a dream, Aldrin, Keisha, Rommel, Red. The MMDA is there. MMDA. You are funded by government. I've been saying this since before your time. It is not time for Keisha to just dream and to say pop up lang. No, wag nang pop up. Gawin natin permanente na. Thank you very much. Now we proceed to MMDA to answer the dreams of Keisha and Aldrin and all the manongs, the manangs and the young ones who are not fortunate enough na may-ari ng kotse, na may nagmamaneho, na naglalakad ng ilang oras, hindi makatao ang ating ginagawang yan. At bilang isang leader ng ating bansa, may kurot sa puso pag hindi natin pagbigyan ang karapat dapat na ibigay sa mga tao sa kanilang karapatan. Let us give back the space to the people. Hindi puro kotse. Let's not be use all these highways and roads just for those who can afford vehicles. Kaya importante, ibalik natin sa tao ang kalsada. So Metro Manila Development Authority, mahaba po ang aking sulat sa inyo. Sagutin po ninyo ngayon ang point by point ang aking sulat at kung di kaya sa oras, ifa-Facebook ko sa isang sulat. Pero Keisha at Aldrin at si Rommel later will also present. May we hear from you. Is this just a dream? Will I see it in my lifetime? Are you doing it now? Okay, Exec San Juan, Frisco.
Magandang umaga po. Maraming salamat po sa pagkakataong ito. Alam po ninyo, yun pong tinatawag nating asam o panaginip ng ating mga kasamahan ngayong umaga at gayon din na panaginip ng ating magiting na senadora, Congresswoman Legarda, ay kasama po ninyo ako sa panaginip na yan. At ang MMDA po, sa mga nakaraang linggo at buwan at taon ay medyo naging masyadong nasikaso ang movement of people, no? Nakapokus po sa mabilis na pagtakbo ng mga sasakyan na nagdadala ng mga mananakay. Pero sa ngayon po na nakikita natin na ang mass transport ay magiging limitado na. At gayon din ang movement ng mga buses and jeepneys ay talaga po namang yung ating panaginip ay binibigyan ng pagkakataon na maging isang katotohanan hindi lang po sa ating lifetime kundi in our near future dito po sa mga darating na mga buwan. At kaya po ang MMDA sa aming pong position paper na ipapadala po sa inyo bilang kasagutan sa inyong mga katanungan ay nakalagay po doon na we are in full support of the bike lane program under the new or the better normal. Full support po kami, galang-galang na Senador, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much, Frisco, sa inyong pahayag ng full support. Kailan po natin makikita ang pagpatupad ng inyong full support? I'm so happy that you've said that. You are forever immortalized dahil naka-live po tayo, hindi lang sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong bansa. At marami naman eksperto at mga bansa at embahada na tutulong po sa atin at nandiyan ang kabataan at nandiyan ang mga NGOs na tumutulong. Pero paano po natin at ano yung timeline po? Pag-lift po ng ECQ, kailan po natin makikita hindi lamang yung pop-up, kundi permanenteng magka-traverse ng Metro Manila hanggang sa mga karatig LGU at probinsya. Frisco po. I hope you don't mind me calling you Frisco because you look so much like your father. Okay po, Exec San Juan.
Sa katotohanan po, bago po magkaroon ng COVID pandemic, meron na pong ongoing project along the Pasig River, no? Na bike lane. Mahaba po itong bike lanes na ito at meron mga lugar, hindi naman po karamihan, na meron mga obstructions. Pero tinutuloy po namin yung proyekto na yon with the hope na yung mga obstructions will later be resolved once and for all. And then that will already provide a continuous bike lane along Pasig River.
Paliwanag po nyo, Pasig River from where to where? What end to what end?
From Pasig all the way to Manila.
Anong pong parte ng Pasig? Pasig City or Pasig River? What part of Pasig River po?
Mag-start po yan sa barangay Urambo. All the way. Pero karamihan po ng Pasig River may patch by patch po na ano. So it can be join be joined later on ng tuloy-tuloy. So naka-program po 'yon.
Right now hindi pa po tuloy-tuloy.
Hindi pa po. Pero ginagawa na po sana namin, nag-mobilize na po ang contractor, pero nahinto po dahil dito sa COVID. But it will be resumed already again. And yun naman pong mga main thoroughfares natin ay co-coordinate po namin sa DPWH kasi ang national roads ay under po sa kanila. Sana po makasama namin sila Red, si Keisha, and si Aldrin para yung mga issues na dapat may address natin, particular sa mga national roads, ay mabigyan namin ng wider perspective dahil kasama sila yung mismong mga bikers po natin.
Opo. I'm sure pwede silang consultant ninyo. Si Red na ang siya mag-coordinate yung Institute of Sustainable Cities kasama ang dalawang batang ito at marami pang kamukha nila dahil iba talaga yung sila mismo ang gumagamit ng kalsada. Di ba ho? Okay. I'm sure maliban dun sa Pasig River na route, ICSC San Juan, meron ba hong kayong balak na, let's say, EDSA? Hindi ko alam kung dual ba ito. Mula ba sa monumento sa Caloocan hanggang EDSA Ayala ay pwede bang mag-allocate dyan or delikado masyado dahil nandiyan ang mga bus? Yun ba ang balak po niyo?
Pinag-aaral po ng DOTR and DPWH. Kailangan po interagency po ang pag-aaral.
Okay. Perhaps we can have a second batch of this because right now we have the cyclists and the advocates and then only MMDA. Next time we can have DOTR, DPWH, MMDA at sila ang nandyan tapos nandyan din kayo para kayo ang nagtatanong sa kanila. Hindi ba? Okay. At next time, we will request MMDA to have clear slides para makita at video. Ito yung barangay, di nagsimula. Ayan, tuloy-tuloy. Ayan yung ilog. Marumi, malinis ba ngayon? Ano ba? So, kasama ng ating paggamit ng bisikleta, it's not just a matter of, magbisikleta, hindi. Kasama dyan ang paglilinis ng ating mga kalsada. Bawal na magtapon ng basura dahil may batas naman tayo, sundin po natin. At bawal din ang mandumi ng ating karagatan at ng mga ilog at lawa dahil yan ang mga ginagamit na mga lakeside na mga pathway. Alam ko may balak din ninyo yata sa Taal Lake din. At actually lakesides are important na gamitin para maging conscious ang tao na hindi dumihan ang ating mga waterways. Yes, ICSC San Juan, do you have any more presentations, sir? Otherwise, we will go to the next Red.
Meron po sana akong nais-suggest sa inyo, sa kagalang-galang na Senador Congresswoman. Baka po pwedeng gawing isang policy or a law requiring all urban future road constructions in urban areas to have bike lanes.
Yes, that is part, that's why I have to go in a few minutes sa aking new norm bill, renamed as a better normal bill. Kung hindi ko pa nailagay yan na provision, my staff are watching, Sherry and Tala, you're with us now, and Red, I ask you to make provisions for the new norm. Let us embed that in the law na any new construction ay dapat may mga halaman at puno, akma sa ating klima at meron ng pedestrian lane para sa mga naglalakad at merong bike lane sa mga nagbibisikleta. Yan, embedded dapat yan sa ating better normal bill. Tama po kayo, Ka-Frisco. So dalawang bagay po, yung inyong detalyang plano po, base po sa aking sulat sa inyong tanggapan, tas gagawa tayo ng part 2 nito Red, kasama ang DOTR at ang DPWH. At ibibigay na nila sa atin, ano na ang meron ngayon, ano ang balak gawin, at ano yung timeline. Para sa generation naman natin Red, hindi na tayo mag-aantay na sila Keisha lang ang makikinabang nito. Makita na natin na gaganda ito. Okay, ICSC San Juan, I have to go in a few minutes, pero pag alis ko po, hindi ibig sabihin matatapos itong ating programa. I think you have to extend Red hanggang, it's 5 to 11, hanggang mga 11:15 kasi magsasalita pa si Rommel at lahat ng mga nanonood at mga Facebook messages, papakausapan ko na Attorney Ipat at saka si Red ang siya magbabasa nandito sa aking mga text messages. My staff will give it. Ipat is part of that. Basahin mo please to acknowledge them. Yes, because I have to go. Tinatawag po ako sa aming Defeat COVID-19 committee hearing. Well, I will present the Better Normal Bill, which will include the mandatory allocation of pedestrian lanes and bike lanes in present and any new construction in the future. I wish I had all the time this morning as I did in the past week, except that Congress will adjourn next week, kaya nagkaroon ng Thursday session. Usually, Thursday wala kaming hearings, or may hearing but walang session. But now, I have to present my bill now. Thank you very much, Red. Thank you very much, Keisha. I'm not able to see Aldrin, but no, Aldrin is there. I'm not able to listen to Rommel, but thank you to the MMDA for your positive support for our letter. We want it to be not just a letter, but we wanted to see it transform into a bike lane, into a contiguous bike lane. Isang luntiang umaga sa ating lahat. And, before I go, I would like to donate one bike. So, to the organization of Keisha, one bike. To the organization of Aldrin, one bike. I don't know which bike to buy. We'll coordinate after this. My staff, Cherie, is online for yung talagang nangangailangan na frontliner. Security guard, isang sa grocery nagtatrabaho, o isang janitor, yung talagang ang kanyang panaginip sa buhay ay magkaroon ng bisikleta. Yung malayo ang lugar, ganun. So, that's my personal donation. Wala akong donor dyan. Bibilin ko yung bisikleta. Pangalawang tanong ko, after this na lang, dalawa yung aking lumang bisikleta na tinuruan ako noon nung ako'y senador ni Senator Pia Cayetano, who's an avid bike enthusiast. Yan ang eksperto. Ako, passionate, advocate sa eksperto. Bumili ako ng dalawang bike noon, napakaganda. Kaya lang, medyo hindi ko na nasakyan yung bike ko. Siyempre, sira na yung gano'n. Tutulungan nyo akong ayoko naman bumiling bago. Retrofit na lang natin. Tutulungan ako ni Aldrin, ha? Oo, yun lang. Kasi may folding bike ako eh. Yun. At saka may helmet din ako. Sige, I have to go. 2 minutes, sinatawag na ako sa Congress. Thank you very much and good morning to all of you.
Thank you.
Salamat po.
Morning pa.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. To all the viewers, as Deputy Speaker Legarda had said earlier, tutuloy natin to for a few more minutes. Alam namin mainit ang diskusyon. Napakarami na pumapasok na messages and we'll read them out shortly. Alam niyo naman sabay-sabay ang suot na sombrero ni Senator Legarda. So she still found time, no? Dapat today she was supposed to be focused on the bill, but as you also know, inintegrate niya yung cycling sa kanyang legislative initiative. Banggitin ko lang before I move and introduce our next speaker. Of course, two things. Salamat dun sa offer. I think Aldrin and Keisha and Rommel will certainly look forward to seeing and cycling to and doing what we can to advise Antique to take a development pathway, learning from the mistakes of Metro Manila and maybe even Metro Cebu and Metro Davao, but largely yung nasemento kasi agad ang mga maraming mali sa infrastructure sa Metro Manila na ang pinapaboran ay private owners of cars, and that's the minority. The majority are commuters, and that's the priority. No? I guess one of the most important messages to share is that nakatutok tayo sa Metro Manila kasi siya rin ang epicenter ng COVID, ng pandemic. But the truth is, cycling and inclusive sustainable mobility, ang priority dapat niyan ay non-Metro Manila. Kasi yung mga hindi pa nagsisimula sa maling daan, pwedeng tumahak sa tamang daan na naiiwasan yung pagkakamali ng ilang metropolis. Right now, we're dealing with a lot of problems. That's why we're reaching our hands out to MMDA and DOTR and our other colleagues. Kasi hindi mahirap, hindi madali itong trabahong ito. Maraming solusyon ang kinakailangan na kailangan tulong-tulong. I wish we had on our panel Nazreen Castro, the new branch manager of Climate Reality, but she's ill. I know she's watching. Matigas ang ulo niyan kasi kahit na nasa kama ng ospital ngayon, I think she's still watching and she's sending me messages. Gusto ko siya i-ignore para magpahinga lang siya, no? But hindi rin siya makatiis. I guess I also want to say on her behalf that ICSC is the host organization of Climate Reality. It's an initiative that was begun by former Vice President Al Gore, Vice President of the US. It has a lot of branches around the world, and Nazca, to friends, is the new branch manager. And excited si Congresswoman Legarda, who is also one of the Climate Reality leaders, because I think that's an organization that will really matter for a lot of people. In fact, they have a virtual training next scheduled, global virtual training next scheduled for July 18 to 20, no, in a couple of months. And we will provide more details later through Naz and her other colleagues so that those who can join will join. And shout out na muna dun sa mga ilang climate reality leaders that have been working closely with Naz. I can't read everyone, but certainly mga pangalan nila, these are people who really matter. Si Hilary Howe, Maida Kabinge of Light Up Philippines, Rosette Santos of Philippine Green Building Initiative, Carl Alonsay, Bea Dolores, Alonsagay, sorry, Ryan Besse, and a lot more. I think what distinguishes people like Eric Vasquez and Rommel Corro is that the advocacy is not just personal or something that's separate. No? We always try to look out for what we can do. Again, ang tanong natin, paano tayo makatulong sa pamahalaan na may ayos ang serbisyo sa mga mamayan? Kailangan tayong lahat, kailangan tulong-tulong. And so it brings me to our next speaker, and I'm pretty sure ICSC San Juan and our colleagues, Chris Saruco from MMDA, would love to hear as well his particular situation. Medyo unique si Rommel Corro, a climate reality leader. Luntiang Pabahay is one of his initiatives, but something as compelling. He is a member of Triabetics, which is diabetics who compete in triathlons. And I guess you can explain more about yourself. Nag-apologize sa kanina dahil nakamask siya, but I'm pretty sure ICSC San Juan will approve. Nasa workplace na si Rommel at kaya siya nakamask, and that's really just being responsible. Rommel, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, even with the face shield?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
All right, so I'm wearing the face shield because I'm in a co-working place somewhere in Alabang. Okay, my story about bike commuting, which started a few years back, has something to do with the fact that I'm diabetic. But at the same time, I'm engaged into multi-sports, triathlon, to be specific. So as a father of two, after dropping off my kids at school here in Alabang, I park my car and then I cycle to my work in Makati. So passing through, traversing to the East Service Road. So that's approximately 20 kilometers one way. What are the benefits of cycling to work? For one, I was able to integrate my multi-sport training because I bike every day, Monday to Friday, 40 kilometers a day. That's 200 kilometers a week. Second, I save on fuel. I save on Skyway toll fees. I save on parking fees in Makati. You know how it is in Makati. You only have 4 hours maximum to park. And then what we do when we bring our cars, we leave the parking and then enter the parking again. Otherwise, the parking fees will be restrictive. And then, of course, I wouldn't worry about uh, parking my bike in our office because the office is more or less friendly, no. But not all office would have that, kind of benefit for all those who bike to work. So technically, my daily commute to Makati is actually started as it started with me as an individual, and along the days, along the months, no, that I cycled to work, I was able to befriend a lot of people who cycle to work as well. Some are living as far as Pinyan, Laguna, and they cycle all the way to Ortigas. And I mean, it's safer to cycle with a pack than by yourself, no? Especially when you're doing urban commute. So so practically when I started to cycle, I engaged with people along the way. And to my surprise, we were a growing number of cyclists or bike commuters to work uh, until I was able to form this bond of friendship among the bike commuters to work from far-flung areas as well outside of Metro Manila. So it was like, being safe and secure in the early morning rush because I cycle around 7 in the morning. It takes me about 35 minutes to arrive to my office. No, that's my leisurely pedal. And then in the evening, I cycle around 5:30 in the afternoon, sometimes 6 o'clock. So it was challenging because I was biking to work at the peak of pollution. I think I remember there are some LGUs who set up there's a board indicating the part per minute pollution index during the time. So I'm able to monitor, how huge and challenging the pollution during the time that I bike to work. And then of course, since I'm building a lot of stamina and resistance, being a diabetic myself, no, of course I was able to manage my diabetes, no, and then of course I have no problem training for races in triathlon because I have the saddle hours, so to speak, no, so during those times. But after a while, no, of course, I was challenged with a respiratory illness. And my doctor asked me to minimize my bike commute to work. Uh, Matigas ang ulo ko, hindi ka agad-agad sumusunod. Pero because of my recurring cough na 2 linggo ayaw huminto, even if I am under medication, I have to slow down. But I was lucky during the time because the P2P bus transport was born. And we have one station in Alabang. So I was able to mix public commute and at the same time biking because during the time, and I think until now, I will be the only person who will be riding doon sa bus na nakabike, no. In fact, if you're familiar with the Volvo buses, no, I am allowed to put my bike inside the bus kasi wala silang estribo sa ilalim. So I think I am the only weird or crazy person who would bike to the station of the bus and then alight in Greenbelt and then cycle to my office, no. And then in between, when I go to BGC and other areas, so I cycle. So that pretty much allows me to move. Um, why am I passionate and committed into cycling? Because there's there's something spiritual about it as well, no. It's not just because I get to save a lot. It's not just because I'm minimizing my carbon footprint, no. 1 car less a day. Actually, today I have developed a natural abhorrence for being alone in the car, especially if I'm using a huge car and then, nakakakonsensya kasi I'm part of the traffic. I'm not part of the solution. But when you bike to work or when you cycle to work, it's actually allowing you a certain degree of freedom where most people are not experiencing while they are inside the public transport or inside their cars. No, I mean, I just whiz through around traffic. No, so it gives me a lot of controlled time. Uh, and then going back, it takes me about 35 minutes. When I arrive in the school of my kids, no, I still have to wait for them because both of my kids are into sports as well. So I have time to cool down and enjoy more time with my kids instead of staying longer in traffic. So pretty much, even today, I still cycle around because I have managed to reduce my work area within my area of residence. At the same time, I have also learned to be a user of electronic kickstart scooters, or of which I am a member of the EKSPH. No, I use my e-scooter in between. So more or less, this gives me ample time not only to be contributing something good to our environment, because as a reflection and to end my talk, no, the COVID-19 pandemic is not just a health issue, but it's a reflection of the environmental crisis that we have. So hopefully, all the institutions can support this initiative of sustainable mobility. So Red and the rest of the team, there you go. My life story as a bike commuter. Thank you very much.
Rommel, maraming salamat. I think Senator Legarda would have said the same thing. It's very inspiring what you're doing, including what Aldrin and Keisha are doing. I'm really sure merong ilang questions that they also want to share with USEC San Juan, who has remained in this call, and we really appreciate that MMDA always finds time for dialogues like this, because we really want to help. But ang dami kasing messages. I want to read out some before I pass it on to Aldrin and Rommel and USEC San Juan. Okay, one of our good colleagues, Daniel Guillen. Hi, Sir Red. Happy to let you know that Davao City is also working on this po. Iloilo City is also again expanding the bike network. Mabuhay kayo. Siyempre, ang husay. There's also a message from Nelly Mistio. Your program is very good because that will reduce carbon emissions. Congratulations. Just like in Europe, they have bus stops where commuters can drop down, and that is where they park their bicycle with locks. Sabi rin siguro ni Rommel, lalo na pag na-resume, sana ma-resume na yung P2P bus system. And if we can encourage P2P and some bus lines to start allowing the carrying of bicycles in front and also sa storage, ang laking bagay kasi hindi naman kinakailangan nakabisikleta the whole way. Kung pwede rin na nagbubus, na meron din doon, these are good options for our commuters. From Lot Ramirez, please push for infra development to accommodate bike lanes. From Golda Hilario, my bike was already returned and I already lent it again to a frontliner. Mabuhay ka. Marco Sadsad, I hope this will come true. Oscar Nava, maganda ang coastline na Antique, Cruhay. Gusto namin makita rin yun and gusto namin makatulong. Jay Paras, how about surplus bikes? And from Ian Magluta, this is good to increase quality of life in congested urban areas. We cannot waste time in traffic. Let's increase bike lanes, sidewalks. Roads are not only for cars, make it safe for people. And I think from Amsterdam, Kevin Hirima, the connected bike network should be the highest priority regarding active mobility in Metro Manila. It will encourage people to cycle more and encourage sustainable social mobility. And finally, Dan Veloso, thank you very much for this webinar. I've been biking to my work to Makati for 2 years now from Manila, where I live. Honestly, I've been looking forward to integrated bike lanes in the metro so that I can roam around, work better. Let's promote healthier green cities. Tama po, ibalik sa tao ang kalsada, sabi ni RC Dasal, di lang dapat sa may sasakyan. What a nice work you're doing, Congresswoman Loren Legarda. Ang dami-dami po. I think we'll have another episode later so that we can actually be more granular and propositional para may maitutulong na konkreto tayo sa ating mga kasama sa kawani sa gobyerno. But Aldrin and Keisha, you may have some questions or things to ask or to say to USEC San Juan and to our other valiant members in government. Businesses are helping as well. Turn Bikes in particular has been providing massive discounts. Kung frontliner ka, go for turn. The businesses that have put up bike cycling parking spaces, baka pwede rin natin banggitin yun. Aldrin and Keisha, please.
Thank you, Red. Before we end, I guess gusto ko lang pong iparating yung aking pasasalamat sa MMDA, kay Exec Frisco San Juan, kay Sir Bong, kay Attorney Chris. Gusto po namin iparating ang aming appreciation at pasasalamat sa inyo pong mga kasama sa ahensya, particularly po kay Ms. Ching Salinas, ang head po ng Bike Program Lane Office, na in all of these years have been very supportive po sa aming mga bike advocates, sa aming activities. But moving forward, we want to help Ms. Ching, we want to help Director Resho, we want to help AGM Almadin, Chairman Lim po, ang inyo pong buong team sa MMDA to really expand po, adopt a bike program, hindi lamang po yung paggawa po at pag-maintain ng bike lane po na meron kayo ngayon sa Ross Boulevard, Commonwealth at EDSA Ortigas, pero sana po mapalawak po natin iyon kasabay po ng polisiya coming from Congresswoman Legarda. Salamat po.
If I may add, no, thank you again to MMDA for being present in this webinar. Maganda po na sinabi nyo na you will support the bike programs and these bike lanes. But I hope that we also get to see something that's immediate kasi we are in a state of emergency actually. This pandemic has really brought a lot of cyclists out at marami sa frontliners natin kailangan na ng protection ngayon. So I really am very grateful for MMDA to be supportive of putting up bike lanes, and I hope to see na there are more structures that we can put up immediately dito sa mga cities natin and our main roads. And kahit yung dry run natin nung nakaraang Sunday, it was I think it showed even more that a lot of people will cycle. So yun lang po. Sana po may magawa tayong immediate and maybe in time also for World Bicycle Day on June 3.
Thanks, Keisha. June 3 is going to be a big day. I want to take advantage of the remaining time bago po mag-respond si Exec San Juan. We really have a few more minutes left. Tumatawad ako sa colleagues natin sa Climate Change Commission who have been managing this. My co-anchor here, I'm not sure she's on video, so I'll ask her question from Attorney Ipat Luna. She asked me to ask MMDA what is their wish list for the better normal provision, and how do we increase availability and allow bike shops and manufacturing to flourish the same way tricycles and jeepney hole-in-the-wall garage setups can work as well. Maybe rephrase ko rin yung tanong, saan po kami pwede makatulong, Sir Frisco? And again, thanks for remaining up to this time in the call. Sir, you have the floor po.
Yes, wish list. Sana yung mga main roads natin which are under DPWH at saka DOTR ay mahanapan natin ng immediate solution, no, for bike lanes. We know that these major roads are the ones that are really congested, particularly during rush hours. Sana immediately, no, magawa na natin yon para mabawasan ng congestion through the use of bikes, no, and more people going through bikes dahil mahirap na yung mass transport, no, where social distancing is almost impossible, no. By the way, I would like to share something, no, ang ating ferry service, which we hope to be resumed sooner or later, no. We allow bikes, no, to be carried on board, and our ferry service automatic merong manifest chance, so may tracing. Tracing will be very easy. Number two, nakokontrol namin ang number of people coming in dahil may registration, may scanning kami, and all that, no. So I guess this will be one way na matulungan ang mga bikers, no, to shorten, no, yung ibang ibang route nila para to make the trips faster and also safer kasi we can already practice social distancing by defining, no, which spaces are to be occupied. So ito is also one of the projects na gusto naming immediately ma-resume para makatulong dahil kulang talaga ang ating public transportation system at this point in time na kailangan may social distancing pa. I think the other question, again, can you repeat?
Saan pa po kami makakatulong, sir? Saan pa po kami makakatulong?
Yes. Yung group ninyo, sana I can, if I can sponsor a small group meeting natin, yung where social distancing, madali naman ma-observe it. That's a group of 6 or less than 10, or through Zoom, no, where we can identify yung problem areas na para sa continuity. You will know which areas ang and you can prioritize, di ba? And when we have this priority list of yours, we can address them immediately. So kagaya kasi ngayon we are overwhelmed, no? We don't know where to start, no? Except alin ay tinuturo sa amin ng LGUs. The LGUs naman, I hope you have organized groups within the LGUs, di ba? Para they can tell the LGU leaders kung saan yung mga areas na gusto nila mabigyan din ng priority to make these lanes continuous. So those are areas na pwede nating pagtulong-tulungan sana, and I hope we can somehow make this meeting very fruitful by going forward from here.
Sir, loud and clear po. Committed po kami. We consider it our responsibility to help your administration succeed. We know and understand how overwhelming this is, and so every little thing that we can do to help, that is something we will do. Nakataga po sa bato yan. We'll do what we can. In fact, shout out po sa isa sa mga officers nyo. I think she represents MMDA really well because she's always accommodating kahit na sobrang busy, apart from you and Mr. Saruca and Danny Lim and Bong Nebriha. Si Ching Salinas po has been very helpful and very accommodating, and she represents MMDA really well because of her patience. Sir, salamat po sa lahat. Hindi nagpapahuli ang Antike kasi nag-text and I think it's just right to be proud of the text from DPWH Region 6 ARD Jose Fruto, who says they actually have a provision for bike and walk lanes minimum of 8 meters sa Antique. Mabuhay po kayo. Napakahusay po ng mga ganyang klaseng balita. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang mga text ng iba-iba. I think there's another informing us na project po ni Congresswoman Legarda is the construction of a seawall esplanade including access roads along Barangay Comon, San Pedro Coastal Road leading to San Jose Port, dedicated bike lanes. Ang mahalaga ay interconnection. Pero bago magkaroon ng interconnection, kinakailangan ng collaboration between civil society, academe, and the government. So we'll take you up on that offer, sir, para mas practical ang aming mga magagawa, including data analysis, generating data, monitoring, kung saan kami makakatulong, gagawin po namin yon. On behalf of our host of the show and my colleague Ipat Luna, I fear we're over time now by many minutes, but we're elated at the response. Okay lang yung bitin kasi meron pang kasunod na Huwebes at marami pang iba. Pagdating sa tulong-tulong, hindi po nagkukulang ang oras natin. Zoom lang po ito, but in real life, I think we need to show that solidarity does not only happen during the pandemic, and if we can always prioritize the needs of commuters and working people over that of cars and private motorists, then government will be even more democratic because ultimately, mobility is a question of democracy and the ensuring that those who are the majority will enjoy the commons the most. That includes our roads and our streets and highways. Salamat po sa inyo lahat. And with that, the show has ended. Next week po ulit.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sir Bong. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.